So good afternoon. I'm going to cover three main topics. Now, the first one, I'm going to try to brief you guys with some data about the public opinion right now in Brazil, in the political scenario. Then this one. Then I will talk just a little bit about the current political scenario that Dilma is facing right now, and I will conclude with some political events that are moving forward, what Dilma will face, especially next year. So we ran a survey in November 10, just 10 days, almost 10 days after the elections. We did about 20,000 interviews all over Brazil. And the first question we asked was, in your opinion, the recent election, the candidates, they brought some concrete proposals to tackle the issues about the Brazilians. And most of the people, 81%, said that the election did not contribute about bringing new proposals or concrete proposals. And basically, we have this sensation throughout the Brazil. We poll some different regions. Second question, do you think that the country overall is more united or more divided after the election? That was a very easy one. Most 21% of the people think that the country right now is more divided. That's very interesting. We have some data from the first Lula election in 2002. They said only 45% of the people in 2002 thought the country were divided. So that was a very, especially younger you are, more divided you feel. Or older you are, more divided you feel. Higher income, more divided you feel. Of course, the low income segments of the voters, it's a very high number. When you read SM, it's minimum wage in Brazil. So in the left bottom, we'll talk about the lowest income, and you grow. So the people with higher income feels that we are more divided. And in terms of the regions, the south and southeast think are more divided than the north and the northeast. Then we ask, moving forward, do you think Brazil will be better off, the same, or worse off during the next 4 years? It's I know the green seems like very similar on the presentation, but we are 35% say that it's going to be the same, 28% it's going to be better, and 37% that Brazil is going to be worse off in the next 4 years in the second term of President Dilma. And if you see in the income level, it's the same. The higher the income, the more pessimistic are the Brazilians. And it's interesting that the most optimistic regions of Brazil are north and the northeast. Of course, that reflects also where the work party, the PT, had the core of their votes, but they are much more optimistic about the future of Brazil. And that's some initial numbers. This weekend, Datafolha, a research institute, released a number that the approval rate of President Dilma right now is around 42%. When she was elected, it was around 40%, so she kind of in the same level. But the worst news for Dilma is that 68% of the Brazilians think that she is responsible for the current Petrobras scandal. So this is an interesting number. And the first message that I want to leave here is that after the dictatorship, we had 7 presidential elections, and for the first time, the elected president is in a very fragile political scenario. Imagine that when President Cardoso won in 1994 and Lula won in 2002, they were, in terms of popularity, they were a huge popularity. So President Dilma is in the worst scenario, even after Collor won. So she's facing a very tough situation, not only in terms of public opinion, but also, especially, in the political environment. So that goes to my second aspect. She's going to face a very complex political scenario. And I don't know, last week, I would say was a thriller how Dilma is going to operate in the political environment. Last week we had in the Congress the voting for the budget law. I don't know, the economists here can talk more about that, but it's basically the government is asking the Congress the ability to have an unlimited spending on the budget. And, as you know, the political system in Brazil is a multi-party presidential coalition. Some people claim that's not a presidential coalition, but a presidential cooptation. But anyway, it's a very complex multi-party context. Many political science have wrote many academic papers showing that bigger the coalition, harder it is to manage the budget. So usually bigger the coalition, higher the spending, higher the size of the state. But as Paulo was mentioning, Brazil has right now at this moment had 33 parties, official parties, and I know that another 10 potential new parties are collecting signatures right now to become official parties. So we're probably going to get to the next election cycle with 43 parties in Brazil. So imagine how to manage 33 parties or 28 in the Congress. So it's very complex. By definition, it's very complex. And Dilma has a coalition with 15 parties. On top of the PT, they have another 15 parties that, in theory, are part of the Dilma's coalition. I would say that the most important ones are PMDB, PP, and PSD. Those are the ones that have more representatives in the House. And one assumption about Brazilian politics that there is no political ideology behind those coalitions. The basic goal is to get the biggest slice of the federal budget. That's the goal. So there is no, it's very hard. Even I always joke that I worked for the Communist Party in Brazil, and they elected a governor in the state of Maranhão, and he's from the Communist Party, but he said that his basic goal in the office is to make the capitalists work. So Brazil, there is no ideology at all. So having said that, this Dilma's coalition last week gave a perfect demonstration how it's going to be moving forward. So during this law budget voting process, interesting to see, the PMDB, 35 out of 71 PMDB congressmen or women voted against the budget law. PP, another important coalition party, 23 out of the 40 representatives from PP voted against the president. PSD, 24 out of 45 voted against the president. So imagine if the coalition parties are that divided, imagine how difficult it's going to be for Dilma. And in theory, Dilma has about 60% of the seats in the coalition. But last week they showed that it's going to be very hard for her to manage those. And she has basically two instruments to manage the coalition. First one is what we call ministerial portfolio. That's what they call in Brazil, a portfolio give some positions in her office. So she's right now negotiating which party is going to get each cabinet. So this is one of the things. And another thing, she has some slices of the federal budget to give to the representatives. That last week she finally gave a price for that. So it's about $300,000 to a vote. So you got $200,000 if you vote with the government. So for me, it was interesting because first time that the government really priced a vote in the House. So so that scenario is going to be very hard for the government to maintain the fiscal discipline or any fiscal policy trying to manage that. I was arguing with one of the people from the government that, it's very hard to imagine that we're going to tackle fiscal issues with 39 cabinets. That's what they have, 39 ministers. And the answer was very interesting. He said, in India they have 66. So we have 39, so we still have a plenty space to grow. And they heard that, and they told me that in India even they have the secretary of yoga. So Brazil. So the third part of my presentation, political scenario moving forward. I would say that 2015 is going to be very tough. First of all, first thing that the Congress has to do in 2015 is to elect the president of the House and to elect the president of the Senate. And the PMDB has its own candidate for the president of the House. It's a congressman called Eduardo Cunha from Rio. And given his background dealing with the President Dilma, it's going to be very tough for the government to manage him, because he has kept Dilma hostage in at least 10 votings in the House. So, and people say, not only the political arena, but also that Eduardo Cunha is the real Underwood. I don't know if you guys have watched The House of Cards. So he's the Underwood, the Brazilian Underwood. Some people say he's the vice president. No, it's Eduardo Cunha, probably the next president of the House. So it's going to be the first mission. Usually Lula had an agreement with PMDB to have like one mandate was PMDB, another mandate was PT, but right now PMDB is pushing to have the president second time in a row. And PT knows that this is a very sensitive issue. In the Senate, right now the current president is Renan Calheiros. He's he defends the government in many voting situations. Last week was an example. He was the one that pushing the budget law. So he's kind of, but what people say in Brasilia, and I heard from different sources, that most likely Renan Calheiros will be involved in the Petrobras scandal. So if his name is going to be in the list of Petrobras scandal, it's going to be very hard for him to be re-elected as the president of the Senate. And that comes the worst part that I feel. That's going to be the biggest challenge. People are saying, and this is rumors, there is no, that about 70 Congress or senators or representatives of the House are going to be in the list of the Petrobras scandal. So imagine 10% of the Congress of Brazil dealing with a scandal, with a corruption scandal. This is, I have researched it. I think never in the history of the planet, 10% of the Congress of any country were directly involved in a corruption scandal. So imagine the House is going to be completely focused on that. So in a year that the President Dilma has to work in the economic side with the new fiscal policies to face a very tough political scenario and also a very tough public opinion scenario. So it's going to be a very difficult year. I don't know about the economy. They're going to talk about the economy. But imagine a scenario that difficulties in the economy, difficulties in the public opinion, popularity, and difficulties in the politics. It's going to be very hard. What I heard from the people, from the PT, from the work party, is that Dilma is going to have to do something that she doesn't like to do, that politics. She's going to have to really engage with the House of the Representatives. She's going to have to really engage with the senators. She's going to have to really engage with the governors. This is something that she didn't do in the first term, and the PT is pushing her for do that, because what I heard from the party is that Dilma doesn't like to do foreign policy. Dilma doesn't like to do politics. She likes the economy. So, but right now she's going to have to change a little bit and work closer with the Congress. Otherwise, it's going to be very tough. And last week was a trailer of that.